And hello, Orville Nation. Welcome, everybody. We are in for one tonight. Stay tuned. We're going to start soon.
Oh, there you are. Welcome. Come on in. Don't be shy.
Welcome, everybody. Don't be shy. It's good to see everybody. Wow. Very excited for streaming tonight, guys. Very excited. Back by popular demand. An old friend from our channel. A young old friend from our channel, I should say. And she is here as an author and a cosplayer. And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight with R.M. Briggs, of course, Raquel. And we, of course, have her sidekick, I guess you could say, in this dynamic duo. Sorry, I'm thinking Batman for some reason, Batman and Robin. You guys will see why I'm thinking Batman and Robin. HB is here as well. So we're going to introduce them very shortly. And let's see who's in the chat. Hello, Jill. Good to see you, Jill. Good to see you. Live long and prosper. Moira Kitty, meow. Moira is always meowing, of course. Hello, Moira. Rennie, good to see you, Rennie. And I think I saw a Tyrone around there somewhere. Who's this Tyrone? Let's guy. Oh, by the way, this is the first time I've been able to congratulate you guys on the air. Congratulations to Rennie and Tyrone for tying the knot. Congratulations, guys. It's the first time I've had you in my chat. Then there he is. There's the hubby. Good to see you, Ty. Congratulations to you both. You guys deserve all the best, and congratulations and much happiness moving forward, guys. Hello, Lemon Pie. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Adega Outlaw is here in the house. Science fiction author and doctor and science fiction author Adega Outlaw. Good to see you, Adega. Kronos, thank you, Kronos, for coming and hanging out with us. Thomas M, thank you, Thomas M, for joining us. Let's see who else is in there. Luis Sparrow is there. Well, who else did we see? Hello, Hungry. Good to see you. JPRPH1, good to see you, my friend. Stony Girl, there's the girl who put that super video together. Good to see you, Stony Girl. Of course, I'm talking about the Orville rap song by Sean Mike. Stony Girl did a great adaptation. Thank you, Stony Girl, for that from all the fandom. Sandra Feliciano, good to see you, Sandra. DJ Ronnie, good to see you, DJ. Prophet, good to see you, Time Prophet. Let me just go back as far as I can go. Chris Persia, one of the best wrenches, is in the house. Lovely Sherry, good to see you. Another awesome wrench, Sherry. Good to see you, Sherry. And that's as far back as I can go right now. So thank you guys for being here. Awesome. Awesome to see you are. Oh, so hello, Stuart. And let's see, Mr. Lundell is in the house. John DeMarco as well. Professor Brainy Specs, good to see all of you. And hello to all you lurkers. And of course, Zax. There's Zax. All right, guys. And Star Trek actor Mike Satterfield is here. Thank you. Lately I think you view more as weird science actor, Mike. And Mike's going to be joining us very soon at some point, hopefully, if we can make room for him. Just a couple things before we get started. The Orville, I know you guys are all thinking about Orville renewal. It's going to come. It's going to come at some point. They're working out the details. And as I speak, just as I was about to mention him, there he is. I want you guys just to remind everybody to put in your support to Sean Mike and retweet his Orville Living on the Orville song, guys. Make sure you do that. Let me just make sure really quick. Sean, everybody, all the creators in our chat, all the trusted creators in our chat who are part of the family have a wrench, and I want you to go ahead and do me a favor, Sean, and put in links to your song and your YouTube channel, and put it in a couple times as often as you want. There you go. You're a moderator. You have a wrench down. All right. Again, guys, we grow together, and guys. And you guys have wrenches to put in your channels, your social media, whatever you want. All right. So, of course, it's kind of a special day because we welcome back a member of the family. She was, of course, with Orville Nation. She was with me from pretty much from the beginning, along with Katie. And Raquel used to host our spectacular Wednesday nights with co-host with me. Our spectacular Wednesday nights, Power Women Wednesday. And it was quite the experience until we all went our different ways. Actually, I stopped streaming for a while, and since we just didn't come back to it. And of course, Raquel became a big time author. Katie became a big time Emmy nominated, multi Emmy award winning, meteorologist. And so that's how the story goes, and we are so glad that she is back. So let me I don't know much about HB, so I'm going to have HB introduce himself. I know he's responsible for a great deal of help to Raquel, and I want him to introduce himself. So I want everybody to give a nice warm welcome. Let me just say hello to a couple people coming in. There you are. Hey, Raymond, good to see you. King Dolphin TV, and Todd, good to see you. Orville actor, background actor Philip Gaming, good to see you. Awesome, good to see you guys. All righty. I want to give a nice warm welcome, guys, to Raquel's right-hand man, HB, coming to us from down under. Welcome, HB. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. It is a great pleasure to be here, a great pleasure to be of assistance to Raquel, and also partake of your program. And by the way, I love your radio voice.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. How is and you have a good voice too, I was thinking actually before.
Thank you very much.
HB, so I would like you to maybe give a little bit of before we bring in Raquel, I want to give you a chance to give a little bit of background on how it is exactly how you've been working with Raquel, if you don't mind.
Oh, happy to do so. So number one, for the sake of the show, I would describe myself as the A Persian cat to Raquel's Blofeld, if anyone is familiar with James Bond. I'm the fluffy little white kitty that sits in her lap and says, meow, I think I can paint a paperback cover for you, meow. And so I became aware of Raquel because I was aware of Clobby, otherwise known as Clobberin Times. Clobberin Times is one of the most knowledgeable and best people to listen to on the subject of comic books, particularly Golden, Silver Age, and Bronze Age comic books.
Absolutely.
And my previous background professionally was as a comic book illustrator. That's what I did for a living. And I don't do that anymore for various reasons, most of them health reasons. And I ventured into what I call the Clobbyverse because of his interest in comic books. And then I discovered one Saturday that they were doing a live show, and I thought, what's this? And I sort of accidentally discovered the 735 Club, the Saturday Star Trek show that is put on by Clobby and Raquel. And I found it charming and uplifting and heartwarming, and it was everything that good fandom is about. It was everything that things used to be when we would go to conventions in the 80s and the 90s. It had heart, it had soul, it had humor. And there was this wonderful, smart woman as co-chair for the enterprise, if you will, of the Clobby Star Trek show.
And she does know her Trek, doesn't she?
My God, I was so amazed and impressed. And I thought, this is exactly the kind of woman science fiction pundit that the world needs. And why doesn't she have 500,000 followers on a YouTube channel by herself? And I thought, I'm going to have to tune in. I love Clobby, but Clobby plus Raquel, I'm going to be tuning in every week. And I was very impressed with what she had to say regarding Star Trek in particular, but science fiction in general. I was very, very impressed with the detailed way in which she would break down what she liked, why she liked it, and every so often the problems she would have with other people who didn't seem to understand Star Trek from a bar of soap. And the literary allusions that she would mention, and it was very clear that she had a very, very self-acquired by hard knocks and a hard-won cultured background and appreciation of fine things in life, but also the honest, just, getting through life, good things in life. So, a good cheeseburger alongside a great night at the ballet or the opera. And I thought, now this is a force to be reckoned with. So then it turned out she was an author, and it turned out that she had some material that I could check out for free, some samples on Amazon of her work. And I thought, well, she says she's an author. Listening to the way that she speaks on Clobby's channel, I reckon I'm probably going to be rather impressed. And then I saw the samples, and I thought, I'm very impressed. And in fact, I looked at another set of samples, and I was more impressed. And I thought, well, it's very, very difficult for authors to break in these days because of the publication environment. Because of my previous publication experience, I was quite aware of that professionally, how hard it can be for somebody to just create a career and fight their way in and then fight their way up. And because of her good work on YouTube, I just, out of the blue at one point, and I wasn't even on Twitter at this point. My only internet society was YouTube, and I would leave little notes in the comment section for other people. A long time ago, I simply said, hey, look, if you've got a story that needs an illustration that features a completely non-human something or other, a monster, some sentient creature that doesn't look like us, human beings, Homo sapiens at all, I'd be quite happy to do that illustration for you. And I thought, she doesn't know me from a bar, so we're getting friendly, but we're not actually friends right now. And she probably won't get back to me, or she'll turn me down, and it'll be fine. No worries. And then later on, things changed. Things changed, and we started getting chummy, and I did an illustration for another one of our mutual friends, Mark C. with a D, who also has a wonderful YouTube channel. He does a great show called Sunday Geekery. And I did a portrait of one of his favorite collectible toys and comic book characters, Baron Karza from the Micronauts.
Hmm.
And Raquel
I-
came back to me very quietly and said, uh, and she can confirm this and tell her own version of the story. She basically said, you know, you offered to do an illustration for me a while ago, and I'll understand completely if you turn me down, but I'd feel like a fool and kick myself forever if I didn't try to take you up on it. Would you still possibly be willing to do an illustration for me? And it took me about 2 seconds to type back, yes, 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 yes. And that was it.
Wow. By the way, that was a great intro.
Oh, thank you. It didn't
was
run on too long, did I?
No, that was a great intro. That was perfect. Raquel deserves that big red carpet intro.
Yes.
So, that's fantastic. I'm so glad. How long have you guys been working together?
Oh, you'd have to ask Raquel. I'm a bit fuzzy on things like that because I'm like the the goofy guy with a paintbrush. You know what I mean? But Raquel's the one with the mind like a steel trap for times and dates, etc. I've never been good with dates ever since I was in kindergarten, etc. I mean, I can remember a few vague things like the fact that Godzilla started in 1954, you know,
Yeah.
in the Japanese version before it got to America. But it was months ago. It was before Christmas, I can tell you that. And in fact, it was well before Christmas. I think I started. I think we started together going back and forth and discussing it sometime around October of last year, may have been November. And she was just, while we're waiting, can I spruik Raquel a little bit more and talk about the process of creating?
Let me get her
Kid
on. Let me get
Okay.
her on. And so guys, let's give a nice warm welcome
Yay.
to RM Briggs. Welcome, Raquel.
Hey, hello
Hurrah.
everyone. Thank you
Hello.
so much for having me. Hail to the chat. Hello, friends and new faces that I don't know. Hello to one and all. And thank you so much for having me, PJ. And thank you so much for that warm introduction, HB.
I meant every word, and you know that.
The honor is ours, Raquel. Thank you for being here.
Yes, it is.
Let's see a couple of people who are coming into the chat now. Bird of Prey, good to see you, Bird of Prey.
Hey, Big Bop. Haven't heard from him in forever. How you doing?
Jessica Castillo, good to see you, Jessica. Who else did I just see coming in? Nate, good. Nate knows. Good to see you, Nate, and a couple other people. So awesome. And Maria from Tiantelli. Good to see you, Maria.
Hey, hello.
All right. I don't want to disrupt your chain of thought there, HB. You were going to take us you were going to describe your way of work, your work. What is it? I was going to say work ethic. Your
Process.
Yes, thank you.
Well, what I was really going to do is just use a little bit of the process talk to compliment Raquel some more and actually provide a major compliment for her as a writer. And I'll apologize for repeating this compliment later in another interview we have lined up. But it's important to say, and it's important to help sell the work, that people understand the way the mind of an author works, so you can appreciate that in addition to the words on the printed page or the words you see on your Kindle. It's important to appreciate the mindset and the creative process of somebody. So it's a little bit of, shall we say, meta frosting on a delicious cake. And Raquel has got the most cocoa and the best butter in the frosting of her creative cake.
Oh my.
So the thing is that when you've worked with a lot of authors, and I've worked with a fair amount, I've worked with some people who've won a Hugo or a Nebula, and there was one guy who won both a Hugo and the Nebula. The one thing you learn is that as an illustrator, you really want to deal with someone who not only has a big brain in their head, but knows how to use it. And for an illustrator, that means being able to tell you what they actually want you to put on the illustration, particularly if it is a highly honored illustration, and doing the cover for a book is the highest honor that can be bestowed upon an illustrator. That is the movie poster for the book, so to speak. It is the most important illustration that can happen for a book. either of collected stories or a novel. And so I thought, oh God, please don't let this be pulling teeth. Please don't let this be pulling teeth. Please let her be good at it. Please, 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 please. And I explained to Raquel that she needed to treat this like she was a witness to a crime, and that she was giving a description of a perpetrator to a cop, who was then going to create a mugshot of the person who had committed the crime. And the creature, which I refer to as the beastie, that she was going to have was going to be the perpetrator, and I needed details. And so we went through that process, and I'm not going to go too much into it. We can always do that later on if there's time. But Raquel took to it like a fish to water. She took to it like a falcon takes to soaring on the highest gusts of wind. And it was immediate, and it gave me everything I needed in order to have the image of the beastie in the story of Georgia, A Night in Old Montreal, come full blown into my head instantly. Instantly, I saw this thing. It was one of the few times in my life I could see the cover, thanks to the way Raquel's mind works and the way she writes. Instantly, I could see the completed cover painting in my head and know exactly what I had to do. And that's only happened to me 3 times in my life. That's how good she is.
Wow. Raquel, I have not had the pleasure yet of reading, my friend, but I will. Life is complicated, wonderful. and I have to finish reading a lot of stuff from a lot of friends.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, it's really tough right now in science fiction publishing. The publishers, large and small publishing houses, are pretty open about the fact that they're not interested in science fiction, classic science fiction, and they're typically and openly, they automatically reject collections. So we're seeing, America, the West, had a great tradition of short stories, and we would read them in magazines, and we would read them on the bus or the train, or we'd read them in the bathtub or in the lunchroom, or we'd read them in the paper. And many of those wonderful stories became some of the greatest books in our history, in human history. And now, unfortunately, through this corporatization of publishing, we're seeing publishing houses move away from that episodic science fiction. We're seeing them move away from that those episodic stories, those short stories and short reads, and going more for people who are already famous. So it was pretty difficult for me, coming from publishing and studying publishing and writing in university, to come up against that. I thought, oh my goodness, could you imagine how many of the greatest works in the Western civilization, well, in civilization as a whole, you could just erase if we didn't have short stories being featured in magazines and newspapers. So
imagine no Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, there'd be no Edgar Allan Poe, of course, who died unknown and unpublished, and H.P. Lovecraft as well. It's a very frustrating thing, and so I'd like to see a return to the tradition of classic science fiction. I certainly think that there are people out there who are highly interested in episodic fiction. And getting back to your point, it goes along really well with a busy lifestyle. You get to sit down, just like Edgar Allan Poe described it, of course, when he described the perfect short story, is to sit down and in one sitting be able to enjoy yourself, to go to another place, to have a great time, to disappear into something. And it's over before you know it, and it leaves you wanting more.
That's great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is great for a busy lifestyle. This question in Kronos sometimes is busting our chops in the chat. He's a friend who's joking around a lot, but I think this is a sincere question. How do you, for people who don't know you that well, Raquel, how do you classify yourself with regards to your academic life?
I don't like talking about myself. I'd rather take a shovel, dig a large hole, crawl into the hole, and cover myself with dirt and a rock. But yeah.
So now you're on the spot.
Yeah. So I'm an award-winning academic. I studied editing and writing, Then I took a master's degree in communications and technology. I have area of specializations are semiotics, cybernetics, critical theory, just basically communication theory. It's more like social science, sociology mixed with anthropology, psychology. And I have a refereed SOI, a statement of intent, for a doctorate in social science. And so when you see communication and technology scholar, that's a parchment that I have already earned through years in university. So it's communications and technology. And I really love cybernetics, and I really love the interchange humans have with media and technology, and so that is my area of study. I hope that clears it up.
Yeah, very much. I mean, communications. When people talk about being a communications scholar, it can be very vast. It can be very vast. It's a big umbrella.
It is.
So you pointed it out very well. Let me just address one thing in the chat. Thank you, Gary Ambrosia, our friend Gary.
Gary's here. Hi, sweetheart. Thank you for coming. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love you.
And Gary, I'm sure Gary's over there hard at work in Doomville. Thank you, my friend, for that super chat so much, Gary, and thank you for your support of our friend Raquel and HB. Thank you for the super chat, Gary. You don't have a channel to put up, so I can't put up a channel. Thank you, my friend. Now, Raquel, tell us real quick, because I want to put up the let me put up the now exactly the written works you've released, and I'm sure you there's probably even a lot you haven't released. The written works you have released fall into two categories. Do you want to explain that briefly?
Sure. I guess when you look at academic work, I've been published before, so the nonfiction, and of course I've been published in textbooks and things like that with regard to different types of essay work and manuscript work, and scholarly work, academic work, and basically my whole life I wrote short stories. It's my passion. I've been passionate about short stories and short story authors literally my entire life. And so I was writing these stories, and sometimes I would read them to people. Sometimes I would fold them up in an envelope and send them in the mail to people. But most of the time I threw them out. And then all of a sudden the vid happened. And we were stuck in these small groups of safe shelter-in-place communities and exchanges, social exchanges. And I thought it would be nice, as people were, returning to playing board games and hanging out and having dinner together and stuff. I offered up one of my stories as entertainment. And I was quickly told by the people who were attending the supper party that I ought not to throw my stories away ever again, and that they would like to see me publish them.
Yeah, for God's sakes, don't throw them away.
Yeah, so if you are familiar with my nonfiction, and I write about linguistics, cybernetics, these communications and technology. So it took a little bit of nudging and pushing in order to get me to do this, but I did do it. I managed to do it. I got 10 stories together in just under 2 years. And decided that if publishing houses weren't going to be interested in it, and I wasn't going to be able to get any traction there, that I knew in this community of people who I've met and people who I've interacted with, that people were crying out for classic science fiction that wasn't didactic, that wasn't trying to over-moralize, that wasn't this sort of corporate hegemony or this corporate leadership or dominance of ideology or entertainment. I knew that people were hungry for that. So I just decided to go to Amazon Kindle, publish the stories one by one, to show people that, they could buy it and that they would enjoy it. And then after HB came to me and said, I want to paint a beautiful cover for you. Let me do this for you. That's when I said, okay, well, that's it. It's going to be a book now. And so now there it is on Amazon. And it's the whole collection of 10 episodic science fiction tales. And I hope people love it. So far, the reception has been incredible. It's blown me away. So, and that's how you find me here now.
Are they futuristic, Raquel? Or, well, they may not all be the same, but are some of them futuristic? Are they present day science fiction?
Well, let me explain it to you this way. I believe that science fiction, its nucleus is human beings dealing with their anxieties and anticipations over futurism. What's going to happen in the future? How will technology affect us? How will advances in medicine affect us? How will changes in culture affect us? What if we go out into outer space and we meet something and it reaches back, as Stephen Hawking would say? And so my tales are a mixture of adjacent worlds, possible realities, and possible scenarios that explore those anxieties and anticipations we have over scientific advancement and over technology and the possibility we might not be alone in the universe. So in our world today, people really love a happy ending. In our world today, we tell great tales of the people who get away. Well, I should warn you now, without giving too much away, that not everyone in my stories gets a happy ending, and not everybody gets away.
Ain't that the truth?
Wow.
I don't mind those kind of endings though, and that was one of the things I found so fascinating, delightful, and personally enriching about Raquel's work, because Raquel and I have some distinct similarities in taste, and I think that really assisted us in creating the cover for her book. And oh, I heard a strange sound effect there for a moment. And there is a love and appreciation without ripping off of the 60s and the 70s science fiction material in Raquel's work. And that material has the guts to go where it needs to go without worrying about what 80% of the possible audience might say. In other words, her work has guts alongside intellectual honesty.
Oh, I totally would expect intellectual honesty from Raquel. Absolutely. Actually, it's one of the criticisms that we've long talked about, right, Raquel? How how franchises are not. Well, Gary's comment here: franchises have not been true to their own, to themselves. Really.
Yeah.
Well, it's a cultural phenomenon, and we see this when we see the rise in power of corporations. And so now we see corporations trying to take the position of the church or to, take the position of religion and be the ethical and moral guide of not only the nation, but of nations. And so they've taken up this mantle, and they want to use products, arts and entertainment products, as a form of the corporation's idea of our morals and ethics, the corporation's idea of what we should be watching, and certainly a lot of admonishment. We see corporations in this corporate storytelling using these teams. No longer, we're not having a dialogue with a single author anymore, grappling with these difficult issues. These are teams of writers, psychologists, and marketers who are working together to make these stories that the corporations want. And so I'm the antithesis of that. I'm the opposite of that.
From a communications point of view, you just brought up a really important point in human psychology that worries me a lot when you talk about these big writing groups. And one of the things that worries me a lot, and I see it a lot, is where accountability is spread out across many people in what we call the bystander phenomena because of a group of people. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I totally I totally think that that's the case. And what ends up happening is arts and entertainment become product, and they're produced by these teams, and they don't take accountability. I think, when we're looking at these products, we wouldn't see anywhere near the amount of backlash we're witnessing in the public at large today, the public writ large today, if it were a single author challenging you. It's one thing to sit down with a pen and paper or with a typewriter or with a word processor and write a story that's difficult to manage, that may challenge somebody else's beliefs, that may challenge somebody else's ideology. I think the public is okay with that. But when it comes from a corporation and it's a corporate team that isn't just authors, but it's a team of psychologists and marketers, and I can definitely tell you that that is the case. This is not just an assertion made emptily. I'm telling you that is definitely the case. Then the ramifications become quite sinister, nefarious. It's quite dangerous, because now we have a corporation saying, this is what we want to lead people. This is what we want people to think. This is what we want people to argue and fight about on social media. This is what they're going to discuss, rather than a single artist sitting down and saying, well, I'm going to do some research. I'm going to do an outline. I'm going to design some characters. I'm going to make them real. I'm going to make them feel, and I'm going to go on this journey, and I'm going to take my reader with me. So it's two very different things, isn't it, PJ?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you a follow up on that, because we've talked about this a lot, and I've talked about this with Gary on Doomcock's panels, for example. The fact that we see space horses in the Star Wars movie, riding outside on the side of a spaceship,
Oh
and
no.
and we see Captain Pike always in Strange New Worlds. We see Captain Pike always in an apron. He's always cooking. He's always doing the dishes.
You're killing me. You're killing
The
me.
question I'm going to ask both of you is, because it's very clear to me that the other component here that Raquel is almost saying is, it's focus groups. Focus groups are actually directing, hey, listen, this is what people want. This is what this is what we want people to think. But go ahead.
being
I'm
nice.
But
asking
it's
you
also
about
the
focus
fact that
groups.
there is an over $900 billion online industry that in social science we refer to as the attention economy.
Mhm.
And so it's, getting people upset and getting people online and getting
Mhm.
people engaged is the aim of some of these corporations. When you look to Amazon, you look to Amazon Prime, and you look at the breakdown of how they make their money. It's really much better for them, to the tune of tens of billions of dollars, to have you online making videos, arguing and fighting, tweeting, giving them all that free ad space, giving them all of that word of mouth. The negative coverage with the public generates just as much money as, let's say, action figures did in the 1980s. So there really is no incentive to create something that's beautiful, and because it's not proven product. A single artist is a risk. Rebooting and re-energizing and recasting and reshaping these proven products and making them so that they outrage people and they get them online to the tune of $900 billion plus. And that's what the ad ecosystem is worth in the attention economy these days. That's much more incentive for a corporation than creating something beautiful. And we're headed down a dangerous path with regard to that. Hate watching instead of attempting to make something beautiful.
I
Kurt's
agree,
out.
but
Go ahead, HB.
we've
Sorry.
my apologies, but I in agreement with Raquel. I think we're so far down that path, we've already crossed the Rubicon, and she knows what I mean by that. No, I think we're past. We're as they say in Macbeth. You mean we are more than halfway past the halfway point of the river of blood. There's no going back now, and it's gone from the attention economy to what many of my pals and myself refer to as the narcissism economy, because people are only paying attention to things that they narcissistically feel reflect themselves. And when Raquel was growing up and I was growing up, and correct me if I'm wrong, Raquel, sometimes when we did not have money in the family for a new book, we'd have to trundle our little butts down to the library and read something for free, right?
Yes, yes.
And a lot of those things were, getting back to another point previously, to double back, just like a bunch of the wonderful stories in Raquel's collection do and interweave and interact with each other. There were these anthology stories in science fiction that were published in the 50s and the 60s and even in the 70s. And the characters either had to, there was no narcissist in those character-driven stories, but they also plot-driven stories that won the day. Narcissism would be the downfall of the character. It wouldn't be the flag under which the character rode their shining white horse.
That's a very good point, because that is the predominant imagery these days and the predominant messaging. So point taken there. That's for sure, for sure.
And that's what's beautifully missing in Raquel's stories. The notion that the almost sociopathic level narcissist is the one who not only wins, but should win. And I'm really glad that such is missing from Raquel's work, because I've bloody well had enough of it. I've been putting up with that stuff for over 15 years. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that is absolute garbage that, thank goodness, Raquel doesn't read or watch, that I've suffered through. That's okay. I'll suffer through it for her. But her work was so refreshing, and that was what was so inspiring. And even when somebody's having a slightly selfish moment, they are rising to the occasion. And just before I swing the podium right back forcefully to Raquel, I just want to let everyone know that when I was painting the picture for Georgia, and that hand is Georgia's hand on the cover, by the way, that is Georgia's hand.
Yeah.
I even told her in DMs, and she can confirm this, that her story was getting to me so much, and I was feeling for the character of Georgia so much, that at times I had to pause painting because I had tears running down my eyes out of fear and being so upset for this poor woman. And I could relate to this poor woman in the way that she had come from one slog in her gig to another slog in her gig, and she was being sent here, there, here, to, by the bosses, by the powers that be, and here's one more lousy night with one more lousy suitcase, and all she wants is to relax and take her shoes off and get comfy on the couch with a big glass of Shiraz and some decent cheese, and yet we know what happened to her afterwards.
Don't give it away.
I'm not giving nothing away.
But can I jump in and interrupt you for a second? Because
no, please, I'm done.
I want to say how important it is that folks realize that this is what you're seeing in front of you is actually the digital image of a painting on a canvas using fine arts. So this is something that's incredible.
Wow.
HB has to stay anonymous because, he has done some famous stuff. He has royalty checks coming in. He has contracts and obligations. But let me explain something to everyone. In a world where art is being digitized, in a world where they're taking away art and AI is doing art for us, and a lot of authors are just buying these covers that they can tweak using AI, I feel incredible knowing that such a preternaturally gifted human being sat in front of a canvas and painted this beautiful painting for me. It's something that would go for thousands of dollars in a gallery. It is indicative of a genre where people absolutely loved science fiction, and science fiction was everywhere. And so this book cover isn't just a book cover. It symbolizes what it's like to do something organically and passionately. It symbolizes the analog of artistry and being able to do things for yourself and lovingly apply your whole soul into something real and tangible that you can touch. And so I am profoundly grateful to HB for this incredible cover. And I hope everyone will just savor what it's like to have this very 1960s, very 1970s cover that's real and made by a real artist. A real artist. It's just remarkable.
I
And
love
on
it,
top
by
of
the
that,
way, HB. I love it.
Thank
It's
you.
very and if you guys zoom in a little bit on it, well, go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
Well, the other thing is that as a gift to Raquel for her work, re-inspiring me regarding science fiction and taking me back to those lovely stories from the 1960s and the 1970s we both mutually appreciated, I wanted to give that back to her in terms of the art. And therefore, the techniques that I used were circa 1965 to 1981, the sweet spot between the mid 60s and the mid 70s. So, number one, there was no digital here at all. Everything you see there was done with acrylic paint and some acrylic ink and physical brushes, and only the tiniest little bit, probably 8% of airbrush, to blend out and deepen a few tones. It is all done completely by hand, and I didn't even get to sit down because of my health situation. I was standing in front of the canvas for 4 hours at a time, making this happen day after day, and it took over a month and a half to do. But for Raquel's work, and only Raquel's work, it was worth it. And the original image is to use the metric. I apologize to other people. I don't know how to translate this into imperial. It is 50 centimeters by 80 centimeters is the original size. But Amazon, of course, being Amazon, had to screw us in getting all the artwork in. And Raquel can tell you a funny story about that one. But this is all done by hand, everything. Because I kept saying to myself, whenever my body started really hurting, but I was still inspired, and as a painter, you've got to go when you have the inspiration, because it's going to go away in about 10 to 15 minutes. And I kept saying, as my arm was hurting as I was lifting it, my legs were hurting, this woman is worth it. This story is worth it. This woman is worth it. This story is worth it.
This guy has clearly done some very, very famous comic book work, RPG games. This person has worked with Nebula Award winners, Hugo Award winners, and this human being with no benefit to himself did this for me. It almost makes me want to start crying on air. You have no idea how much I love you and how incredible this is for you to do for me. And I will never, ever risk telling anyone who you are or prodding you to find out who you are. But I want you to know, for somebody as famous as you are to reach down and pull me up, pull my book up so people will take notice of it. I will never be able to repay you for that. And I love you. And now I have to stop talking or I'm going to cry.
Raquel, take this question really quick about Ingram Spark. Any usage of that?
Time Profit. I have not had a good go of any of the publishing stuff. So, I mean, I still want people to go to Amazon Kindle, because I'm really hoping to have my breakthrough moment. I hope that word of mouth will happen, because when the public has word of mouth, it's the only thing that forces the publishers and the corporations to sit up and take notice and get those stories out. So I still want people to go to Amazon Kindle, and I still want people to get my book from there. But to tell you the truth, my fans were adamant from the very beginning that I needed to be on Patreon. And there are some, like, Andy Weir. Andy Weir could not get published either, and he went on Patreon. Let me explain to you my situation, and this will probably blow you away, Time Profit. In the month of December, I sold $758.37, I think the figure is, in books on Amazon. And that's how much Amazon made. They sent me a royalty check for 70 cents USD, which that day I believe came out to like 96 cents Canadian.
How does that happen? How does it happen? It's mind-boggling.
I don't know. I took screenshots of all of their paperwork where they sort of explained it all away, and I was devastated. I mean, I cried. I thought, what am I doing here? But then, you know, like I have this community of people over at Klobbies. There are about 250 people that go there, and they are incredibly loyal to us. And they just picked me up and they dusted me off and they said, no, you're going to do Patreon. So I went into Patreon and I have 5 patrons now. And believe it or not, I've just through the generosity of these people supporting me, like people used to support artists in the 1800s, I've made more money from that. Like it's actually $19, but I've made more money from that than I have in like 3 years that the book's been out.
And right now I want to stop right here, and I'm going to put up, by the way, all of Raquel's links are below this video if you guys are watching, but I'm going to put the link in the chat. And I urge people to take a minute, just take a second and go to the Patreon, check it out and sign up. How many levels do you have, Raquel?
I have one for 99 cents, which I got in trouble from Patreon for, because Patreon wants you to start at $5.99.
Oh, really?
I just have one that's 99 cents, and there will be unreleased material at the 99-cent level. I also have one for $4.99. At $4.99, not only will you get previously unreleased things like audiobooks, audio stories recorded by a famous Canadian playwright who is a fan of my stories and read one of my stories, but you will gain access to all of the stories. So I'm doing a new book. And I plan on releasing a new short story every month. And at the $4.99 level, you will have access to each and every single one of those stories. And then at the end, you can buy the book. So you see what I'm trying to do, everyone at home? I'm trying to like balance things. And I hope this helps Time Prophet sort of understand what I'm doing. Patreon is like things were in the 1800s, where you would have this amazing dancer, this amazing poet, this amazing playwright, this amazing painter, and they weren't rich. So people who had money came around that person in a circle and said, we're going to help you to get your work out. That's what Patreon does. But I'm always going to keep one foot in the Amazon Kindle, because that's where people can leave the reviews. That's where the corporations have to sit up and take notice that people do want classic science fiction, that people do still want episodic short stories. They do. Just like they still love classic Star Trek, just like they still love, Stargate. There is an appetite for it. So I hope that answers not only PJ's question, but also Time Prophet's. And
are you streaming on your own channel at all?
No, I don't do that. I just,
Okay.
I hang out with Klobby. I'm an introvert, and I'm an INTJ. That's my personality. So if it weren't for the people who are my friends who are like, hey, come hang out with me, I wouldn't have any friends at all. It's just because extroverts take pity on me, PJ. This is how I have friends.
I hate to think what you'd be like if you were an extrovert.
Well, no, it's just,
I'm just kidding.
Well,
I'm kidding.
When you're an introvert, you can still be articulate.
I'm an introvert too.
And
Raquel, I know what you mean.
You can still like love your subject, but it does, and you could still be extremely polite, but you can still find socializing difficult unless it's about something academic or specific subject.
Yeah.
And you can still sort of feel tired because you care what other people think and feel, and you want to hear everything they have to say. Does that make sense?
That's very true, and I totally understand you, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
So, let me just address real quick. Thank you, Maria, for that super chat. Thanks, PJ, for having our. By the way, what does the M stand for?
Oh, that's my name, Raquel Marianne.
Marianne. Okay.
Raquel Marianne Briggs. That's my name. But in the great scheme of science fiction, ladies go in. Dorothy Fontana, she went in with her initials, and so that is another nod to the science fiction tradition that I love, which is that 1950s, 1960s science fiction is my heart. It makes my soul sing. It makes my heart smile. And so that was another opportunity for me to go, hey, hey, classic science fiction lovers, I got your back. I'm right here. And so it's RM Briggs.
So RM, thank you for having RM, and thanks RM for liking my silly tweets. Excited to read the new release. Hats off to you. Big hugs, Maria.
Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Sending a huge hug. Thank you so much.
And I think I saw one more super chat, and let me just address it 1 second. And guys, don't forget to go again to Raquel's Patreon. It was the way it was done in old in other times, to have a patron for an artist. It works out really well for the artist, and it's a very good way to support creators. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Raquel is still incorrect. Her work is priceless.
And speaking of people who have gone out of their way to support my work, Mr. Tickle Trunk, I love you so much. Thank you. Just your support, your love and kindness, and honestly loving my stories and then doing something about it to no benefit for yourself. I just love you. Yeah, and I'm honored and grateful to call you my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Go ahead.
I had a quick little joke bit.
Please.
Well, one of I've known a fair amount of INTJs in my life. Okay. I was first introduced to the Myers-Briggs test by somebody whom I was engaged to. Didn't pan out. Don't ask me about that. But she was a wonderful person, highly intellectual person. And the one thing I learned through her and other INTJs is that most of them have this great attention to detail when they're working on something that is important to them. And they will get the full amount of work that is required done. And I greatly appreciate that, which is why if you count the amount of fangs on the beastie on this cover, there are more than 111 individual fangs painted by hand for Raquel in respect to that. And they all had to be done in 2 layers of paint. Go ahead. Go ahead, my dear.
Let's take a closer look at that, because I was going to say before, we needed to zoom in, and thank you for bringing that up.
Davina Duckworth, I totally agree. The internet is full of introverts. Could you imagine if we were all in a room together? Someone would have to walk up to us and go, okay, the only way these people are going to talk is if we give them an interesting topic. And then they name it, and then you're like, and go.
Now, but once you get going, once Raquel gets going on something she's passionate about, I mean, it's like, oh boy, they unleashed the Kraken. It's wonderful.
HB, we don't have enough resolution on this image here, but yeah, it's fantastic. You can see all the individual teeth. Wow. How many are there, did you say?
Over 111.
Wow.
And you actually set up the coloration with a very quick layer, very watery layer, and then you put the black around those, and then you go in individually and paint the teeth with another layer of paint, and then you let that dry, and then you add some more highlights and deepen some of the reflections, which you can't see here due to the resolution. And then you go and do the black layer over again to make it deeper, and so it doesn't look splotchy and nasty. And it just was, I was looking at it and I was going, I could get away with it. I could get away with doing less. No, it's Raquel. I can't do that.
And we have another science fiction author in the house. Hey, Kai MFS. Thank you, Kai, for dropping in. And a lot of people coming to see Raquel. Donnie, good to see you, Donnie. Davina Duckworth, good to see you, Davina. Lots of people popping in to say hello to Raquel.
Thank you so much.
And lots of comments in the chat. Lots of people commenting in the chat. Lots of different things.
Yes, all the introverts. I love how they all explain exactly how we are too. Like, who said it, Mr. Tickle Trunk? So some people walk into. Oh, here it is. So how's that weather, huh? Entire room of introverts stares. intently as if they were all skinning that person alive for entertainment. Exactly. It's so good.
Yeah. Did you see that last episode of Trek? And then the rumor erupts into positivity or negativity, depending
Yeah,
on
exactly.
the Trek. You know, it was interesting on your comment before. I remember Alex Kurtzman saying, if you have 50% for and 50% against, you've done your job.
No.
I completely disagree with that.
No.
And that's not correct. It's incorrect, of course. But well, that comment was made maybe a couple of years ago. Now, Raquel, so there, just to be clear, in Science Fiction Tales, there are 10 stories, correct? You said?
There are. So I sold 9 of the stories separately, and they took off like wildfire, and everyone loved them, and like 100%, like 5 out of 5. I couldn't believe it. It was blowing me away. And the comments people were leaving, I was astonished. I just felt it felt incredible. It's so scary. Well, especially if you publish nonfiction where you just rely on facts and you're a scholar, so you're like, I'm going to lay down the facts. And so, there's an objective truth. And when you're talking about fiction, it could be really scary to publish that kind of stuff. So everyone rallied behind me, and it was pretty amazing. So in the book, in the hardback, which I cannot get to Canada, and there are no proofs that are sent to Canada, and in the paperback, there is an extra story that has never been released previous. And it is a thank you to everyone who supported me from the beginning, bought all of my stories individually for, 99 cents or whatever, and then, bought the book. So Tallulah is the 10th story in that collection, and you can only get it by buying the book.
Which is your favorite MASks of the 10? Can you say? Or do you not have one?
I don't really have one, but I can tell you, MA, that there's a scholar who lives here, and he is beyond brilliant. This man is scary brilliant.
I know.
And he has a PhD in comparative literature, and I believe he almost finished a PhD in philosophy as well. And so he is a revered academic here. And when he read my stories, which made me feel incredible, I felt like, okay, now I can die. He said that Paul reminded him of H.P. Lovecraft. And I haven't read a lot of H.P. Lovecraft, but I knew that coming from this particular scholar who lives here, it was high praise.
Yeah.
And so I know that a very scholarly person who, is an expert in literature, in world literature, he loved Paul, and I believe Paul is what he loved best. But there are other people that I know from the literary community and the arts community who really like Georgia. I had some hardcore science fiction people who loved Maya. I received a letter from one gentleman who lives in the United States, and he said to me that after he read Maya, it stuck with him for days. And he thought about the story over and over again, going to and from work. So does that help? Brainiacs like Paul. So if you're like a brainiac and you sort of like literary fiction, you probably like Paul. If you're an artistic kind of person, you probably like Georgia. And if you're a pure science fiction fan, you probably like Maya. Does that help?
It does. It does. And Raquel, if you can just give a quick check to the DM I sent you on Twitter, just
oh, okay.
If possible.
I don't normally do that on air. I'm so sorry, PJ. Let me go check.
No, it's okay. No, there's no reason why you should. I would put it in the private chat, but there's a reason I'm asking you on Twitter. Now is just there are some people in the chat who have gone ahead and read some of these. So please, I want to ask for people's opinions. What is one of your favorite stories? So please, if you've read some of these short stories of Raquel's, please go ahead and give us your feedback, and we'll put it up we'll put it up on the screen. HB, are there I don't think there are from what you're saying, but did you consider doing any illustrations for throughout the book?
Well, I can just tell you how things happened. And originally, when I offered to do an illustration, I just offered to do an illustration. And I thought, oh, she might ask me to do something classically 1950s or 1960s, like a little pen and ink illustration for the interior of one of her publications, because digitally that's got to be allowed to happen. It'd be foolish if it's not. It's the easiest thing in the world to stick a JPEG or a TIFF into anything digital. And Raquel said, I'd be really honored if you would do the cover for my book, however you want to do it. And that suddenly switched gears in my head completely. So I had to go full bore into a different way of looking at things. But if I had my original health, and I had my druthers, I would have had this published in a way that had the painted cover, and then for every single short story, there would have been a stunning pen and ink illustration done for it. And I would have been happy to do that, but the very situations at the time in which we were doing it didn't allow for that, and that's often the case with movies, television, film, comic books, etc. And
but it's not off the table, folks. Like I have thought, well, the person who works in the literary and entertainment community here, she's a very talented person. She was saying that due to the nature of the fellowship that goes on, with Gary and Doomcock and all of us as geeks and nerds, that she thought that it would be intelligent to meet a demand where there could be the collection and there would be an illustration for each one of the stories.
As is traditional, yes.
But that's definitely not going to happen the way that HB thinks it's going to happen. And I'm going to say this on air because there's absolutely no way I would ever allow him to do that for free. That's something we have to talk about. And I would love it if he could do like some sketches maybe, and maybe we could release a special edition of it. That's for he and I to discuss off air. We have massaged the idea a little bit, but it's a lot of work for him. And I love him, and yeah, I don't want to press him into service. So it's not off the table, but I would love it too, just because I just love seeing what's in his head. You guys have no idea how bizarre it is for me too, that I went out on the internet and I met somebody who knows so much about fine arts and has so much a fine arts training that he could actually render what was in my head just from reading the stories. And I'm sure many of you are like, well, that's just because you're good at telling stories. No, I don't mean that. Like, I mean, like, even like short stories are very popular with certain people because they don't give you all the information. One of the most beautiful things about the short story is it puts trust in the reader to push beyond the boundaries of the walls of the story. You don't have to have details on everything. The mind colors in and pushes out further. And so for HB to be able to read these stories and know the implications of some of the characters that I made really blew me away. Would I like to see that as sketches? Heck yes, but I don't want to press them into service. We'll see, folks. We'll see.
And also, as a credit to Raquel's writing, I could see the beastie, and I could see the hand of Georgia, and I could sense the coldness of the environment immediately. And we were doing a lot of back and forth with DMs with this. And I'll jump to the chase first, and then I'll double back. Where Raquel, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, Raquel, because a lot of times artists do not get proper appreciation from authors. People don't realize this. A lot of times we're just expected to be good little art monkeys, and while the author is doing the organ grinding, the monkey's sitting there dancing and holding out the cup. All right. And someone puts the coin in the cup, and that's the equivalent of us doing the good art, and that's the equivalent of the sale. And we're expected to be happy with a peanut that the organ grinder gives us. And that's about all we get often. But Raquel is incredibly appreciative and never fails to show that appreciation. And that inspires someone like me to go 100 steps farther than my poor, weak, semi-crippled legs will allow. And when we were doing this work, and I finally sent her the finished piece. First off, when I did the sample work, the thumbnail sketch, as we call it, the concept sketch, Raquel, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, says, "Oh, I'm in tears. It's like you reached into my head. How did you reach into my head and see exactly what was in my head?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Because you write that well." And then and then I finished the picture, and Raquel said, "I'm just staring at it." She was staring at it for like 45 minutes straight and inviting Andy in to look at it. And Andy was complimenting it. And he was just saying, "I can't believe this is exactly what I had in my head when I wrote it." And that is the kind of kismet between an author and an illustrator that people pray for but do not often receive.
Yeah. And it sure helps that my husband is an artist too, and that's who he's referring to for the folks at home who heard Andy. My husband Andrew is an artist, and he won an award for his art and was invited to do citywide art, if that gives you an idea of the type of art he does.
Very cool.
And when we were looking at the painting, the first thing Andrew said is, "That's excellent." And I just thought, oh my God, like, I was completely blown away. I was completely blown away. And Anti-Derivative Jill is right. I have been remiss in not mentioning Lila. We have a beautiful playwright here. He writes plays, he directs plays. He moved off to Toronto, Ontario, the big film city, to become a big shot because he's such a talented person. His name is Eric Smith. Eric Smith loved Lila. He picked that story out of my stories to read. He did an audio version of it, which is on my Patreon. Anti-Derivative Jill, who is a friend, fellow nerd, fellow INTJ. That is a good list. I love you.
And she says she's yet to read the others, but she said she's yet to read some of these, but those were her favorites. And thank you, Rennie, for working the chat and so much. And by the way, guys, HB, you use the term art monkey, and I think it's very appropriate in certain situations.
It's a term. There's a nastier term I won't use, but it's a term that's been going around since at least the 1990s. And some of us are working back in the 1990s. Some of us back when publication mattered. We're working on occasion 27 hours without a break for food or rest in order to feed the maw of the deadline beast. And sometimes we were treated very much like herd animals and treated very much like trained bears in a Russian circus. And so when somebody is so respectful to you, it doesn't matter that I did it for free, because I did one piece of art for a company I'm not going to name and a person I'm not going to name, but it was, I will say it was for a comic book that at the time in the 90s was the 5th most highest selling comic book on the planet out of every company and every country. Okay. And I got the modern day equivalent of $2,100 for something that was 10 inches by 15 inches. And that's a lot of money. And that's a lot of prestige. And it doesn't matter at all compared to Raquel's reactions to the work and the things that she told me in private. That was worth more than $2,100 to me. It's worth more than $21,000 to me, because that is the not the fire opal, the black opal from the Australian desert, which is so rare that if you get one the size of your thumbnail, you can retire and buy a house. That's what that reaction was like.
Yeah, it was incredible what happened between you and I. I just think it's remarkable. And I love this return to traditional ways of writing, of publishing. Well, that's not so much, but getting the book together and meeting someone like you, it's really special.
And chemistry is important, isn't it?
It is, but let's
like
face it.
You and Cloudy have chemistry, very good chemistry, by the way, Raquel.
Oh, well, thank you. But your thing, I also don't want to trivialize this. Sometimes I can be pretty boring when I'm on with Clobby. Clobby gives me a lot of latitude. I get into some pretty academic things. And I don't think it was an accident that I wound up meeting HB, because he was willing to put up with my academic conversations that usually make people's eyes glaze over, and his discussions about fine arts. So I don't want to trivialize the nature of our relationship or how we met. I got very, very, very lucky here, folks. And not everyone is going to get someone like HB. It was a pretty incredible thing that happened to me. And I feel like I won the lottery. And, if you're looking for an artist to do traditional science fiction covers for you, look for somebody who still paints. Look for somebody who understands the genre, that reads the genre, that has a passion for the genre. And that doesn't happen just going on a website book farm where they'll sell you a cover for $57. And so it's really important. And restoring the nature of the art. A single artist, a single author restores the nature of the art. It restores the storytelling process. People want the intimacy of hanging out with one artist and one storyteller, and staying on track with that. They don't want a corporate team of people telling them how to feel and how awful they are. So we want to be the opposite of that. And can I just say, I hate to interrupt, and I know I'm not a co-host on your show anymore, PJ, so please
You can always
excuse
be a
me.
co-host whenever you want.
I love you very much. I beg your pardon. I just have to say, Rennie, you know I love you, and you know I already wished you a congratulations, but I love you very much. You have been such a good friend to me for years. I just adore you. You're just so kind and so smart and funny and just great to be around. Thank you for helping us with the show.
Thank you, Rennie. Absolutely. Thank you very much, my friend. And you guys, hopefully will, I have not seen you streaming at all, Rennie. So I hopefully will catch you at some point. And have they streamed and talked about their big event or not?
I don't know. I follow her. Like, I don't follow very many people on social media because it's too intellectually and emotionally busy for me. But she has been my friend for a really long time. So the second that I knew she was getting married, and the second that I saw the wedding pictures and the post wedding pictures and stuff, I was just really excited for her. I knew she was really in love and she found her soulmate. So I don't tune into many lives because it's too much for me. But she's somebody who's my real friend. So my real online friend, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, by the way, if anyone wants a higher resolution picture of the cover art, I said on Twitter that if anyone shows me a receipt that they bought any of Raquel's stories or they bought the book, I will send them a high resolution picture and DM of it.
That's great.
It's like, remember when we were kids and they said, buy this box of cereal and get the prize inside? It's kind of that.
Excellent. Love it. Love that, HP. And hello to Max World Entertainment. LATCHKUM. Hello, Trey. Good to see you, Trey. All right. Well, now, Raquel, it's interesting because I know you've been busy in the academic world, but there's many sides to Raquel. She is a complex woman, and it seems like you have developed. You're also developing one of your other hobbies, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And just to just to give people a hint of what that might be, I've taken a portion of one of my favorite cosplays that Raquel has done, and look at that.
Oh, thank you.
Look at that, guys. I mean, and how you actually look like an alien because
thank you.
Because I don't know how you did it, but your eyes do not look human.
Those are that's my real eye color.
She's an Irish fairy changeling.
This is my Andorian cosplay. I do a Bishi warrior, and I do Bishi warrior over and over and over again. So some of the pictures that you see of me online doing the Andorian, it's not all from the same event. It's from several events. So whenever there's a Star Trek event in my province, I go to it. So the Star Trek Symphony, I made a public appearance, and we sat in the front row to make sure, that, the orchestra requested cosplay, and so I got up and got ready, and I went. And we have a local theater here that was doing Star Trek improv, and it was a regular thing that they did. So of course I did that as well. And then anything else that's going on that has to do with Star Trek, I cosplay the Bashi warrior, which is this character here, Andorian.
Wow.
Bashi, obviously everyone knows. Bashi warrior is actually one of the original Andorians from like TOS. And Bashi is actually the warrior class. So you'll see that I'm not in leathers. I'm in full chainmail, and it's heavy, and and leather pants. So warrior
Are
class.
you okay if we and I asked Raquel for the Andorian because it's one of my favorite cosplays that she's done. Are you okay if we play that YouTube video in the
Yes,
background?
I am. And I should say on here so that the algorithm picks it up. I absolutely want you to show the video, and there should be no copyright strike where this is concerned, because I'm a guest here and I want to show it. So let's make sure that we say that so nobody tries to mess with you.
Thank you.
Although YouTube will do it. They'll mess with us anyway, but go ahead.
What I'm going to do, do you want me to play it with the music?
Yes, the music is copyright compliant. It's in the public domain. All my music is, so don't worry.
Oh, okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is, if you guys can just mute yourselves 1 sec,
I will, sir.
I will. This is apart from this is from Raquel's channel. All of Raquel's links are down below. Don't forget, guys, to go to that Patreon link and subscribe to Raquel on Patreon. And let me just make sure I get this right. Okay. And let's go with this video.
Your small business has a partner.
Raquel,
Yes, sir.
other than Shran, that is the best Andorian I have ever seen. I'm not kidding.
Well,
Seriously.
thank you, but I should tell the truth.
Yeah.
When I was really young, and PJ, you know this already because we've known each other since 2017. But when I was young, I knew someone who wanted to go and become a makeup artist in film and like take all the aesthetics stuff. And she didn't want to go without me. And I said, oh, heck, I'll go. So I do have a journeyman certification in that. So like I can work in a union and all that stuff. So I did take that. It's not something that I do for a living, but I did take all of the training. And I'm so happy that that person forced me to go to go to those classes because it's a theater and film makeup. So I should be honest about that is my training.
Wow. And you obviously use it to your advantage.
Yes.
Wow. Now you're still just to be clear, you're still doing this. You're doing this after COVID, you're doing this now, right?
Oh yes, I'm doing this all the time. So just having the YouTube allows me to record it in ways that I didn't before. So before, when I would cosplay, I didn't really have an outlet to say, okay, well, here's my cosplay. So I have the Wrath of Khan coming up and the Ilea probe coming up. So
Wow.
those are coming up right away.
Wow, the Wrath of Khan. Were you going to be one of the? Are you going to be
One of the mutants? Yes.
No, what are you going to be one of Khan's women on the bridge?
Yes, one of the mutants.
Oh, one of the mutants. I'm sorry. Okay.
One of those genetically modified chickaroonies.
You know, I still hope to interview one of them because I know one of them.
Oh, do you? That's great.
Yes.
You know that
and-
Mark D with a C knows one of the ladies, and he's been friends with her like his whole life. You should drag him in on it.
Oh, we might know the same one. I should
That's
talk to him.
hysterical. Well, reach out to Mark D with a C, because wouldn't it be hysterical if all three of you were on a stream together? That would be such a magical chat. There'd be such good chemistry.
That would be cool. That would
Yeah.
be very cool. Now, Raquel, thank you for telling me that. I didn't know that. Now, tell us now. Do you tell people where you're going to be? Like some of the other cosplayers are doing? Are they? I'm going to be at New York Comic Con, walking around, signing
Yep.
autographs, taking pictures. You do?
Yep. Oh, yes, I always do. And I have security with me, and and so I'm okay. But yes, I definitely announce when I'm going somewhere. And so obviously, I live in Canada, and things are just starting to open up. So I did 2 public appearances this year. I did Maverick because I wanted to promote a fan choice, because I think fan choice is important. Especially in a climate where I feel fans and readers are being abused by corporations who are trying to shape them, and which is bizarre to me. And so I did Maverick just to be rebellious, although that's not my genre. And then I did something that has been very close to my heart, because I love Clobby, my friend Mike Alonzo, who runs Clobberin' Times. He loves Julie Newmar, and he just loves her as Catwoman. And I've been hanging around with these geeks. You all know I'm a nerd. But I'm not a geek. I don't know all this stuff about films. I don't collect merch. I don't know much about comic books. I don't know any of that stuff. I'm just a lowly nerd. Okay. So
Hey, not lowly.
I decided to get all of the legal copyrighted materials to do the Julie Newmar. So I waited. I collected them all. I have them all the licensed stuff. And then I did something that no woman who is over 50 years old should ever do. I did a video of it. I did
we're
it
going to take a look at it.
just a couple of months ago. So I think I did this one in November.
The video is fantastic. You have nothing to worry about. And are you okay if we go ahead and take a look
yes,
at?
Go ahead. Yeah, for sure.
I was going to do, well, which one do you want to do first?
It's up to you.
Okay, let's do, you said Top Gun first, so let's do Top Gun.
Okay.
That's the one I was setting up. And very convincing, very convincing. I could totally see you on the deck of an aircraft carrier. All righty. Let's see. Oh. Give me 1 second. I have too many windows open.
That's okay.
All righty. HB, any comments on Raquel's cosplay while I put this up?
All right, I'm going to be a gentleman and say that I do have a little bit of theatrical background when I was much, much younger, and I absolutely adore the face paint she does. I'm a massive fan of the old Krylon water-based paints, and for theater. But that plus the costuming she uses, it brings me into the essence of the character that she is doing. I feel like, as a compliment to her, I feel like I'm on set, and I think that's about as big. I think that's about as big a compliment as anybody can give for cosplay.
Thank you.
Absolutely. You do feel like you're getting the behind the scenes of a Star Trek movie of the good old days.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, and now you're going to feel like you're going to feel like you're getting behind the scenes for Top Gun 3 here. For here you go. Is there there is audio to this, right, Raquel?
Yeah, I'll just
Okay.
mute.
Okay. Wow. So that was like that was that was quite the promo.
That's from the con.
Yeah, wow.
Yowza, yowza,
yowza. Yeah, wow. What con is that?
This was Edmonton Expo in Alberta.
Wow. Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And everyone at the con was pretty happy, like to see Maverick and to see, people coming out for Maverick.
Did you take a lot of pictures with a lot of people?
Yes, a lot of people walk up to me and ask me for photos, and I never turn them down. Cause is not consent, as long as they don't try to touch me. And I always ask if I could touch, like the stormtrooper. The stormtroopers here, I always walk over to them and I'm like, hey, let's do some pictures. I love the stormtroopers, but I always make sure that I ask.
And Raquel has an upcoming one that she mentioned months ago, a mutual favorite, the Moon Geniuses from UFO.
Yes.
You said you were going to work on trying to get the wig and trying to get the silvery outfit, but you were not going to do it until you could have the outfit down pat and perfect, 100%.
It's true, but I may be able to do one of the submarine girls now because Clauby was at the Louisiana convention and he found a UFO badge for me. So, folks, if you don't know what UFO is, it's UFO. But you say UFO because it's a spy/science fiction show. It's incredible. It was actually the true Space 1999 before there was a Space 1999. And and Clauby found me a UFO patch. So HB, I'm totally working on it.
Exactly. And UFO is perfect for Raquel because UFO as a series, although incredibly entertaining and heartfelt, is, and I think you'd agree with this description, Raquel, intellectually rigorous.
It is. Yep. And
the women own it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, men, there were a group of men, Freemasons, who made some of the most beautiful things in our society. And the fact that the Andersons created a guild of these like Freemason-like women that are astrophysicists, but are also like banging sex goddesses. It's amazing. And you see this like James Bond movie fused with super original Star Trek like science fiction, and the fusion of those two just delish. There are a few things better on television that have ever been created by our society than Star Trek the original series and UFO.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I really liked about Raquel that inspired me to say, I might be willing to do an illustration for you, was when she was talking about UFO and she was equally enthused about the moon goddesses, as I like to call them. But also she was like, hey, look at Straker. Look at what he's driving, honey. Look at that ride.
Hey, look, I am not beyond objectifying men. I think it's good. It feels good. It feels great.
Straker is the man. I mean, come on. If you can't get Sean Connery in the white tux, Straker is pretty all right.
And this generation, they're in love with meatheads. Like the big muscle-bound jock types of guys where they're taking anabolic steroids and they all look, they're meatheads. The big, yeah. It's okay to objectify nerd and geek guys too, because they're also cute.
But they also
your brain.
Raquel, they also like what I refer to as twinkle bat. They like the little emo guys pretending to be Batman. There's this strange juxtaposition between the little, I can barely lift my library book. And then you have the guy who's like the reject from Commando from 1987.
Oh boy. Anyways.
Thank you guys, everybody. Yeah, for sharing, and of course we grow together, guys. This is a remarkable community. By the way, have you guys? Well, I don't think HB has been, but Raquel, have you been to any of those meetups that they have done down south in Texas and stuff?
No, not yet. I'm trying to get down to see Clobby. And last time I went down to see Clobby, I needed to make sure that I would be able to get back over the border because I'm from the north, right? Like I'm from really north. Like I'm in Canada.
Like Ice Road Truckers North.
Yeah. So so I needed to make sure that I could get back because I didn't want to be stranded there, right? My husband's a programming engineer who's gainfully employed. I have a job. Like we were kind of scared that we might not be able to get back. So
are things okay now? I mean, for traveling in Canada?
Oh, yes. I live in the Texas of Canada, so we're very free here and things are back to normal. But the thing is once you cross that border, you need to make sure that you're going to be able to get back. And so that was a concern. And by the time that happened, the tickets tripled. So the ticket price, tripled. Yeah. So we're going to get down there to a meetup. I can't wait to see everyone. I can't wait to meet everyone. I think it's going to be so much fun. Geeks and nerds alike. Geeks and nerds unite.
I remember that debate, that argument, the distinction between geek and nerd.
Well, as a social scientist, it's really important for me to uphold these beautiful, distinct social groups because corporations are very interested in conflating all of our social groups. And they're doing this so that they can make films that we'll all go see. They only need to make one film and then they expect to make $1 billion off of it because it has everything. I don't know if you've noticed that now, but you go to a movie and it's romance and it's comedy and it's superhero and it's mystery and it's action and it's this and it's that. And so once something becomes everything, it becomes nothing. And so
that's a good point.
I'm Generation X. Just a little bit over 50. And I liked it when we knew the difference between a geek, a nerd, a dork, a headbanger, the emo kids, the punks. These are distinct social groups that have tremendous value to society. And I love them. So yes, I do like to talk about them, but not here because everyone's eyes will glaze over.
Not mine, honey.
ClobbyCon says
yes, Joe.
Why not? I'm a millennial, says Donnie. All righty. So let's see. Now, did you say it was Julie Newmar you were emulating?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I did this one for Clobby. I did this cosplay for Clobby. I was sitting at the Clubhouse. It's one of his shows that he has on his channel. And we all sit around and we talk about geekdom and nerddom. And he was just talking about how much he loves Julie Newmar. And I was just so inspired. And, I remember watching this show when I was young. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it right. So I went and I got all the licensed stuff so that not only could I continue to do it, it would be high quality enough that I could continue to do it, but it would be a complete replica, which, as you know, for me is really important. I like replicated props. I like replicated stuff. So
it's a complete replica.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you guys remember everybody in the chat. Well, maybe not everybody. I see people who are younger, like Rennie and stuff. But but a lot of you guys will remember being homesick from school one day and just binging all these, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie,
Yeah.
Batman, the Monkeys, F Troop, you name it. Get Smart. Who knows? Any others? HB? Well, where'd you grow up, HB?
I actually, one of my nicknames when I was a kid and a teenager was the Trans-Pacific Ping Pong Ball, because I'd go back and forth between the two continents over the Big Drink. And so we had our shows in Australia, which I won't bore you with, but I loved the Monkees. I was so grateful that I got the old reruns of Star Trek, the original series, without any of these CGI abomination additions. And I don't like the CGI additions to the old episodes. And I got to see the animated series. Jill and I agree that the animated series is fantastic. Big shout out to Anti-Derivative Jill, who also does fantastic genre content on her own channel. Sorry, had to plug. And Twilight Zone, Outer Limits. Outer Limits is a huge thing for me. And then, of course, a lot of the old 1960s Hanna-Barbera animation, where that was already getting phased out in the 70s in the United States. But if you were in Australia, we were getting stuff from the 60s in the 70s because it was being sold on the cheap in reruns. So I got to see a whole bunch of wonderful things, like when other Americans were no longer seeing Johnny Quest, I was seeing Johnny Quest from the 60s. And Johnny Quest from the 60s is absolutely influential to me, 100% influential to me. It's one of the best things in the world. And Lost in Space. So Dr. Smith, it's an embarrassing story my family likes to tell. Two of the first words I learned to speak. Dr. Smith, Dr. Smith.
Really?
And, the robot, and also, Wild Wild West was very huge for me. I adore that show, which was pretty much one of the original strange spy-fi shows, because it's set in the 1800s, but it's spy-fi with science fiction elements and sometimes surreal elements, like the Avengers, thrown in to a spy show. And Joseph Conrad was the lead actor for the lead character. Amazing show. And then there's a whole bunch of Brit stuff. I grew up with Doctor Who. One of my earliest memories is Doctor Who. John Pertwee, in fact, because he was the Doctor when I was a toddler. So that's one of my earliest memories. And we were lucky enough here in the land of koalas and combat wombats that we were getting free to air Blake 7. That was shown on our network television. We didn't have to worry about PBS getting it. We didn't have to worry about any secondhand sources getting Blake 7. And that was, for us as little preteens or teenagers, that was our water cooler television moment. We'd be talking about what Avon was doing. We'd be talking about, oh my God, did he actually ask how much Villa weighed? Did he do that? Did we really hear that? Yeah, I guess we did. And then, sometimes when we were feeling our oats, we'd be sitting there going, oh my God, Dana. Oh, look at Dana. Is it Dana or is it Servalan? And we'd have those shows. So, yes, I was quite lucky. All right, Clubby. Yeah, my man. All right.
Hey, I
Now
love
it's
you,
a party.
Captain, my captain. Mon capitaine. How are you? Thank you so much for being here. I love you with all my heart. You know
And
that.
correct me if I'm wrong, as a credit to Clobby, Clobby was the one who introduced you, Raquel, to Blake 7 and UFO.
No, he didn't introduce me to UFO.
Oh, okay. I'm wrong.
That was a me thing.
Good.
But he introduced me to Blake 7, and he introduced me to The Prisoner. I live in Canada. I grew up in the 70s. We didn't have that up here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm completely, madly in love with The Prisoner, and I'm just mad for Blake 7. I love both of them very much.
Yes, and the Prisoner is just the best that you can get out of magnificent theater, stage play, scripting, but provided into a television format.
Yep, that's exactly it. You hit the
Let
nail
me,
right on the head.
Let me say, guys, that we have somebody. I got your Twitter DM, Zax, and Zax has put his money where his mouth is, and there you go. He's there,
Oh, nice.
and I'm not going to show it, but he actually DM'd me a receipt. So does he get one of those high resolution pictures?
Yes, please send it to him. Send it to him.
Yes, as long as if Zach can provide me a way on Tweety to send him the high resolution image, I will do it. So hit me up on Tweety, Zach, or give me another means by which to send it to you, and I will send you that high resolution picture.
And of course, Clabby, you're never late. Good to see you, my
Never.
friend. Whenever Clabby gets here is when he gets here.
Yeah.
So
the grand poobah of all of geekdom. The grand poobah.
Perfectly said, Raquel. Perfectly said.
And you're just in time, Clabby, because we're about to watch the video of Raquel's interpretation of Julie Newmar. So, all right, I'm going to mute you guys.
Okay.
Or can you mute
I
yourselves?
can do it for you, boss.
Thank you. And let's see. Let's go. All right. So, by the way, Raquel, these are a real treat for all us nerds and geeks. So, thank you. This is much appreciated. All righty. I bet Adam West would be proud to be on that image with you.
That's so kind of you to say. Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun to do. And Mike Alonso, Clobby, you all know him as Clobby from Clobberin' Times. He was my inspiration, and I love him very much. He's one of the best friends I've ever had in my whole life. I adore him. So it was a lot of fun to do. And I wanted to do that for him, and just to celebrate Batman. He loves Batman. You know, Batman's the first word he ever said when he was little.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. He was like one of those kids who he wanted to grow
You're
up
talking
and
about
be a
Claudia
hero.
here.
Yeah.
Yes. Clavo.
Wow.
Yeah. A man
Thank
born
God
to
he
be
likes. Sorry.
a man born to be a hero.
But I'm glad he's more Ben Grimm than Bruce Wayne.
Yes.
Listen, this was a very artistic video, by the way. I love the way
Yes.
you were spliced into some of these images. That was really cool.
Thank you.
The posing was perfect, my dear. The posing was
thank you.
absolutely perfect.
Thank you very
Now,
much.
are you just wait, I'm gonna just stop it right here. Are you so tell us about the costume itself.
Yeah, so this is one of the licensed replicas. So all of the materials here are the licensed replicas that are on sale, and I bought that because when you're hanging around with the grand poobah of all of geekdom, where he knows every little teeny tiny detail, I think the man speaks, 11 alien languages. You want to make sure that you get the costume right. So I went with the replica material because I just thought, well, obviously, that I made my Andorian cosplay from scratch myself. I used Japanese paper clay. Obviously, that I did the makeup myself, that costume is completely constructed by me. But sometimes you have to make sure that you stick with the original stuff, and that you remain faithful to it. And let's face it, a lot of people just throw on a black cat suit and they think that makes the Catwoman. Well, I just wanted to put in a little extra effort and do the proper Catwoman. So that's why I went with the replica material.
Wow. Yeah, very it's very reminiscent of her. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah, and it's a little more, it has more of the blue highlights to it, like it does in the television series, under different lighting. But, I'm 50
Was
years
the
old.
mask always that shape, like that?
I don't know. I just know that it's the replica one, and it's as close to that one as you can get. Now, I'm around 50 years old, a little over 50 years old, and I have not used any type of Facetune or any type of like Photoshop or anything on this, just enough to blur out my private life behind. So I needed daylight. So that's why the costume's color looks a little off, because I like to take my pictures in daylight. If you take pictures in daylight, the lighting is more kind. And I do believe that, like especially being a communications and technology scholar, I do believe that it's okay. I don't begrudge anybody who wants to use a filter here or there. I don't think it's natural or normal to look at any human being in 4K. I don't need to see what your dermatologist sees. But I also think that a lot of people have gone too far, and it's a form of catfishing. And so I try to keep my stuff as real to life as possible, especially because I meet everyone in real life, right? And you don't want somebody to go, wow, you do not look good.
You're right. You brought up a good point.
Catfishing.
Well, it's true.
There is absolutely no reason to see somebody its face close up in 4K. It's not needed.
It's not. And I think that that's something like that people need to realize, when you see people using the live filters on their streams, or people using a filter on their photos on social media. I get that, as long as it's to a minimum. You can't start using de-aging stuff and Facetune and all these other things, because then when you meet people in real life, they're extremely disappointed. I just don't want anyone to be disappointed. So, it's scary to put something out there like that, because everyone else is putting out, these highly stylized images, photoshopped, Facetuned, de-aged, and I don't like to do that. So, yeah.
And 4K is so horribly intrusive to the reality of what our human eye sees. I mean, when you look at somebody at 4K, it's like the reveal of the salt vampire in Star Trek.
You're not You know, even if you're standing face to face with somebody, you're not getting that resolution.
That's
It's
what I mean.
Huh.
Like if you
Yeah.
reduce your photos to what we refer to in the business as naked eye, then I
Mm.
think you're still telling the truth. But you can't go any further than that. There's too much of that going on now, and then everybody wonders why men get so upset that they feel there are lots of opinions online where people are like, well, women don't look like that, and what does she really look like, and that's a level of dishonesty I don't think that's appropriate. I think we still have to keep telling one another the truth about who we are and what we actually look like, what we represent, right?
I 100% agree. And I have to admit, because Raquel and I are of an age, I'm slightly older, slightly younger than Claudia. I have to admit this, and I don't like admitting it. Please forgive me, Claudia. I kind of miss some of the old hippie days where women didn't wear any makeup at all. Just let it all just be what Mother Nature intended and let that be the barometer, you know?
I agree
Yeah.
with you, HB. Less is more, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the thing is when everyone gets on board and everyone stops creating a fantasy version of themselves, they'll
Yeah.
also feel a lot better, because
Mm.
once that becomes the culture, and the culture is that everyone is comfortable in their own skin, it's much more healthy. I think the more false images that we put out of people, and the more women continue to do that to one another, the more social media hurts others. It hurts young women. It hurts women's self-esteem. It creates a false promise and a false image of reality. So
But you
it should be
also, to
naked
your
eye. It should be 35 millimeter camera. And once we all do that, social media will stop making people depressed. Just tell the truth. I think truth is important.
But you also, to your credit, you have mentioned on at least one of Claudia's streams, and this is something we talked about privately, that this happens with men as well. And you pointed that out, that there is now pressure for men to compete cosmetically.
Yeah.
And that is equally unfair. And I was so impressed with your statements on those subjects and others. And that goes part and parcel with everything about you that inspired me to do work for you as an author, because the thoughts behind the written word of fiction are integral to the fiction. And the fact that you think about these things and you feel these ways about these things lead into the beauty and the glory of your written word.
Oh, that's incredibly kind of you to say. I don't even deserve this kind of praise. I adore
Yeah, you
you.
do.
But yeah, I think that's a part of the work of a social scientist. And not people who are like super interested in and critiquing popular culture. That's not what I mean. I mean academically. I think it's really important to step forward and to protect the psyches of people using this technology, and be honest about its effects on everyone. Very early on in the game, when I started hanging around with geeks, I realized how hypocritical it was for folks to be talking about rehabilitating. I'm going to use in air quotes, rehabilitating
Ooh.
the superhero comics.
Yes.
When meanwhile, men were eating inordinate amounts of protein, throwing up, using anabolic steroids, going bald, having trouble procreating, fighting with depression, fighting with violence and other things by taking these chemicals to make themselves look like Thor. And our society accepts that. But the minute that a woman has to lift a single weight, or maybe just have a salad for a couple of weeks so she can fit into her costume, suddenly it's some type of abuse. And so I think there has to be a naked honesty, double entendre, fully implied. There has to be a
Yeah.
naked honesty about what's really transpiring here.
That's
We
a
see
good.
women loving and adoring men and ogling men, and it's not really any rehabilitation whatsoever. It's words. It's words of power, and seizing power, not truth.
You bring up a good point, Raquel, with regards to men and heart disease, because a lot of men have been eating excessive proteins,
Yeah.
and mostly just eating meat, in order to always keep their potential for creating muscle at a max, and it has a lot to do with heart disease. So
Yeah, and a lot of them aren't drinking fluid. They don't want to drink water. They're just eating dark chocolate and tuna, and this has an effect on them. I think it's dishonest to say that little boys were growing up and seeing images in these comic books and that they weren't also affected by the level of perfection presented. My problem with all of this is the introduction of novices using critical theory to sort of explain these things away and sort of act like they were going to rehabilitate or emancipate women in this genre. And I think there's a huge level of dishonesty to that. And I also don't think that I don't think that you should use a philosophical implement that is used by academics unless you have studied it in university. So I think it's inappropriate. Unless you've studied critical theory in university and you have a degree in it, you ought not to be spreading your thoughts about critical theory around, because critical theory must be used in the context of the Socratic dialectic, entertaining multiple discourses that often collide and contradict one another. And the example of the rehabilitation of women in comic books is a good example, because then we also have to look at the way men are depicted in comic books, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's more and more and more muscle, and no one's talking about that.
Well, you really laughed when Claudia explained to you the muscles and teeth motif.
Yes.
And that was delightful. But then, you were so thrilled when I suggested to Claudia, and then he shared with you the glorious naturalist work of Gil Kane and the way he would depict men and women both. But I also want to point, I have to give you another compliment. I know you're INTJ. I got to give you another one. I'm giving you a warning, okay? I'm giving you a warning. One of the things that I thought was so heartwarming and so intellectually rewarding that you spoke about on Tweety was when you started discussing deconstructionist theory and what was deconstructionist theory in the academic context versus the way people are using that term in what we could refer to as the geekosphere.
Yeah.
And the ability to parse the difference between the academic definition of that and the current use of that term, or misuse, as you were pointing out, really just underscores one of the reasons I adore you as an author and as a friend and as a compatriot.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. PJ has produced this image that says you must be 18 years old to view this content.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
It's
now,
true.
This is your Patreon, and
Yes.
no, this is not because there's an OnlyFans behind this script, behind this clicking on this. This is Patreon, guys. So I just wanted to show people your Patreon.
Thank you.
Oh, looks nice.
Oh, thank you.
Great. There's
they changed 99 cents to $1 per month. Okay.
Alrighty.
By 1 cent. Well, that was nice of them. Thanks.
So there's several options here, guys. You're gonna want to check this out. What video is this? This is a promo, right?
Yes, that's the trailer for the series, my first book series. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Alrighty.
So at $1, you're a part of the private community. So you're just like one of those old school patrons. And I wanted to for folks to be able to have access to something where they could just, throw a tip in the jar. And then the $4.99 is where you will get access to my news stories.
Raquel, I know you don't stream, but it might be an interesting idea just for your patrons, for example, to do a private stream every once in a while.
Well, I'm not allowed to do that.
Oh,
I'm
you're
actually not even allowed to post any type of videos to my Patreon because I am an 18 plus. Now, it's very important for folks to realize that I consider my work 18 plus. There is a good measure of sex and some violence in my stories. They are for adults. And so when Patreon asked me if I would be creating a site that had adult content, I was honest. And since the news stories are going to be going up there, there will be adult themes: sex, violence, swearing, alcohol use, drug abuse, all the things that are normally a part of an adult world, for good or for bad. So I was honest about that, and because of that, they put me behind a partition. So I'm not allowed to upload any videos to the Patreon, and this is the way they have it set up.
Okay. Okay, I understand. I was saying that you could consider doing private YouTube, because you do have a channel, you just don't use it, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, so you want me to do it on YouTube?
Well, I was thinking just for your members, maybe.
Yeah.
Just a gathering just for your members. I don't want to throw
No,
words in
I
your
love
mouth.
you. I think you're the best. But like, I remember I'm an introvert, so I have to be adopted by people who actually can small talk and do things. I mean, I'm socially stunted. Like, I'm just not good. Like, what's the weather like? Oh, do you like Derrida? I just, I'm not good at the socializing stuff.
I understand. You're better than you think you are, by the way.
I love Raquel's word that she used in a DM. I thought, I don't know if I can use this because it sounds a bit modern and I'm a bit of a fuss bucket. But Raquel used the word peopling. She said, I'm just not good at peopling. That was so adorable.
Oh, you should turn that into a t-shirt, Raquel.
Yeah, I did turn people into a gerund and a verb. So it's a verbal and a verb now. Peopling. Yeah, peopling is exhausting for me, but otherwise, like, unless I was adopted by Clubby, unless I was adopted by you, PJ, I never would have streamed if it weren't for you and Mike.
Really?
Yeah, you guys adopted me. You're like, oh, come on over here, you awkward, weird little nerd. Come on over here.
I thought you were always great on the channel. I mean,
oh, you're a sweetheart. Thank you.
You were always great. You were, you especially in that period of time where I was kind of like finding my way. You were such a pillar for me, and I thank you for that, Raquel.
That was my pleasure, and you're a good friend. You always have been a good friend to me, and I'm so happy for your success. You deserve it. I used to tell people all the time, and I think it used to make you blush and make you feel a little uncomfortable, but I do believe you are the Johnny Carson of YouTube, and I think you make people feel great, and you have such a diverse audience and such an open mind, and you're so kind. I think you're delightful, and I am cheering for your continued success. I hope you just hit the stratosphere.
Well, thank you. We're a very humble channel. I actually started the new channel. Some of you guys know what's going on. We have the new channel, which is going to be about inspiration and personal growth, and that's kind of the space that I come from. And I'm just going to put the link in here in case anybody is not subbed to Inspiration. I was going to say Inspiration Nation, Inspiration TV. I actually had thought about for a second calling it Inspiration Nation, but this is the link for Inspiration TV if anybody is not subbed.
Well, make sure that you do follow that link, because attaching yourself to PJ is a good idea. He's a good person, and he's out to turn this medium into something that is positive and and gives everyone an outlet. Before we leave my Patreon, because I'm just a little guy with I'm a nobody, a nothing, a nobody, I need to give a shout out to my patrons. Larry is in the chat. He is one of my patrons, and he is helping to support this artist. I love you, Larry, as well as Shooter and Cardinal Sin and Scuba Pete and Mark D with the C. Larry is one of my upper tier patrons. He is actually helping this author to get and stay published. Larry supports. He puts his money where his mouth is. You know, a lot of people in our community talk about supporting indie authors, and there are a few people who put their neck out to actually do that. And
Yes.
Larry is one of them. And I love
Thank you,
you,
Larry, as well, for supporting all of us. Raquel is absolutely correct. Yes. Thank you. Let's say, is there anything else we should say about the Patreon, Raquel?
No, other than the fact that I feel totally uncomfortable trying to use this as a method to publish myself. I hate putting my hand out. It feels gross to me, but I want everyone to know that the $1 a month thing is just if you just want to just show some love and you just want to throw a tip in the jar. $4.99 a month will get you all of the stories. Each month, I promise you, you will receive a story. And it's going to be a lot of fun because even if I have writer's block, I'll do something cool. Then
Raquel, do me a favor.
Sure.
Look at it in a different light. And I'll maybe HB agrees with this. If you're creating your content, those people who are enjoying your content, they need a home. They need a home to where they can go and talk about your stories, and you're going to be putting out more and celebrating you and your stories. They need a home. And if that home is Patreon, well, that home is Patreon. If it's your YouTube channel, it's your YouTube channel. But I think you're doing something good by giving them a home.
Well, I think that's incredibly kind of you to say, and thank you very much. You know, when I think about Andy Weir, and I think about all the beautiful books that Andy Weir has written, and I think about Andy Weir's films and how much they've inspired people in science fiction, and how much the science fiction community loves him, and that he couldn't get published, and that his only way in was Patreon. It makes it is quite nice to know that people can connect directly with you here. So it's a remarkable thing, and I'm just grateful. Like I said, it feels like the 1800s. I feel like I'm in some sort of Gothic novel written by Oscar Wilde or something, and not the picture of Dorian Gray or anything, but just this whole idea of people who are capable of doing it, nurturing and supporting talent that corporations won't touch. It's just remarkable, and I'm very grateful.
Don't sell your stories to J.J. Abrams.
Oh my gosh, I would never do that. But I should explain to everyone that last tier, Maecenas, you know, that's a word that means somebody who supports independent artists. That's what that word means. For the $19.99 a month, please don't ever do $19.99 a month. Don't do that. The only reason why I give you that one is because it gives you an opportunity to buy the book. Like, you get a digital copy of the book, and you know that I get paid for it. But then you can immediately just go to the dollar thing. Okay, so like, don't feel weird if you have to like downgrade and you're just like, I want the book, I'm going to downgrade. Just know that I did that because that's what I do want you to do.
Sign up for the $19.99, and as soon after, you can sign up for one of the other two.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't, you know, I will die from embarrassment if somebody stays on the $20 a month thing. Anyway.
That'd be really funny. But the thing is, if we get like 5 people signing on for the Maecenas thing, I'm tempted to promise to do a pen and ink illustration for one of the stories, the new stories. A prize in every box as long as you buy this cereal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us. I want to ask you both again if there's anything else that HB, maybe is there something else that you would like to add before we wrap up?
I would just like to add that Raquel's stories will fulfill an emotional need in your heart if you have any desire for classical science fiction, but it will also appease any slight niggling in your stomach if you require modern brains applied to traditionalist stories in science fiction. So you get the modern brain translating the Bradbury, translating the Poe, but not ripping off, showing respect to, but being its own original thing. So if you want originality, but with a modern intellectual mindset that doesn't talk down to you, doesn't rise above what you want. It's that exact sweet spot of the right amount of paprika and the right amount of potatoes in the goulash. Buy the work.
I love you. That's incredibly kind of you to say. And I also want to just say before we go that it is important that you still support me on Amazon Kindle. I'm not making any money there, but the thing is that you can get a beautiful copy of the book from there. That's a beautiful hard back edition, which isn't available in Canada. Even I can't get a copy of the hardback,
I
and
can't.
you can get a beautiful paperback. But if you choose to do that, if you choose to give Amazon and Kindle the money instead, and I want you to have a hard copy of my book, I don't begrudge you that. But I will tell you this, if it matters to you that I'm not making any money off of it, there is a way that you can help me. You can make the corporations listen, because every time you buy a book from Amazon Kindle from me there, might not get any money, but you have the power to leave me a review that will make them sit up and listen. And one day maybe there will be enough reviews there that they'll be interested enough to approach me with something substantial, and we can go wild with this and really connect with that classic science fiction, episodic fiction audience.
Okay. I saw Nate ask this question twice, so it's the second time you've asked it. Would you write for the Orville if you could?
I would write for the Orville, but I would write for the Orville in the exact same way that Gene L. Kuhn, DC Fontana, and Gene Roddenberry did. So I would submit the short story, and then it would have to be turned into a teleplay. That's the way that it worked for the original series, and it's the way that it worked for TIS, the animated series, before it turned into a corporate writing team. And so I believe that if you're going to put science fiction into celluloid, you're going to put it on film or you're going to put it on television, that it should start with a short story. It should start with a science fiction author who goes and looks up and researches all of the science. And so it's not somebody who writes for drama or for romance or anything else, but just somebody who writes for science fiction. They buy the short stories the way that Gene Roddenberry used to do. And then that holy trinity of Gene L. Kuhn and DC Fontana and Gene Roddenberry would then turn it into a teleplay. Would I write a short story for celluloid? Yes, but I believe in that old process, the old process where the audience engages with a single author who wants to tickle a sweet spot in their brain and give them something great to watch and great to think about. Putting 10 people together who want to write for CSI Miami or for Dallas or for These Are the Days of Our Lives or whatever, putting a bunch of those people together in a room with a marketer and a psychologist who work for a corporation to give you a television show or a movie.
Are you saying you don't want Gilmore Girls in space, hon?
No more Gilmore Girls. No more crying in dark hallways. Just stop crying in dark hallways. Stop it.
Too many cooks in the kitchen, I think. That sounds
That's
like too many
right.
cooks.
Yeah. Yep.
Raquel, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry, I asked HB. Is there anything else you would like to add? Raquel?
About myself, nothing. I'm here to promote Raquel and your channel in that order. That's the only reason I'm here.
and you, Raquel, is there anything else you would like to ask?
Yes, I would love to thank every single person who came here today to join us in this wonderful conversation about science fiction. Thank you so much for allowing us into your lives and for creating not only great conversation, but asking questions and just I mean, without you, we're nothing. So it's amazing that you were here. And I thank you so much for your time and your consideration and your wonderful thoughts and messages. I want to thank everyone who wrenched for us today. You are outstanding human beings. And I just appreciate you more than words can ever say. I want to thank HB for reaching down to a lowly, unknown science fiction author to
Hey.
pull her up and give her this incredible, enormous gift of this painting. And I want to thank you, PJ. Thank you for taking an interest in the things that I do, for the way that you care for
Always.
people, for the opportunities you give people in this community to not only reach their audience, but to coalesce over different topics that help people feel great. So I wish you the greatest success. And I thank you so much for having me here today to feature my work. You are a prince, a man among men. Mwah!
Thank you, my friend. It was a great honor to have you, Raquel. Of course, Raquel is family. She is always welcome back. It was an honor to have you back. It was good. Brings back good memories to have you back on the panel, and it was great to get to know HB a little bit and share this time with you. Thank you, HB, for your time. I want to thank, of course, the wrenches, everybody, Rennie, and everybody else who was wrenching in the chat, Rennie and Maria, and anybody else. Thank you to all of you guys. I urge you to go ahead and take another look at that Patreon. Look at those links below. The U.S. Amazon, the Canadian Amazon. Writing a review is a big favor you can do to Raquel. So give that a shot. And again, thank you to everybody. Raquel, I'm going to ask you what's coming up as far as anything coming up, convention wise, anything else?
I will be at the Calgary Expo. I will be selling copies of my book there, like paperback versions of the book there, as well as I will be publishing a story. I'm going to work really hard at this Patreon thing to make sure that I'm putting out one science fiction story per month. So will be a story coming out this month before the end of the month, and it will be called Sirens. And so that will be released to Patreon. Remember, at my Patreon, you get the stories first before everyone else. And I have to say, Captain, Clubby, Mike Alonzo, I love you. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Nighty-o.
Oh, let me just find my right outro, and we're out of here. Thank you to everybody in the chat. I didn't run through the chat. One sec. I'm sorry. Thank you, Prophet. Thank you, Stuart Mitchell. Hungry. Rennie. Klobby. Good to see you, Klobby. Thank you for the time here. Steven. Andy Derivative Jill. John DeMarco. Nate. Jim Henry. Everybody. Tokyo Trekker. Donnie Pearson. Everybody who's been in here, guys. Chris Persia, Maria, everybody who was lurking, Larry, and I'm going back a little bit, and that's as far as I can go back right now. Thank you to everybody. Have a great night, guys.